Hey all, Board Game Rancher, where you'll find everything solo tabletop gaming and more. In the month of April is behind us, a world-changing month. What did I play? What did I think about it? MVP show for May, coming right up. So first, I want to start off by saying I hope everyone you know, love, care about is doing as well as they possibly can be, given the circumstance. This historical event that ain't no one going to forget anytime soon, and that we're going to be in for a while, it seems. And of course, by all that, I mean the worldwide pandemic we're experiencing. I know for myself, my state, we are continuing to be locked down, kind of in a quarantine fashion, for another month, this entire month. And I live in the States, where we are, we're number one with infection rate, deaths. Terrible place to be number one at. Again, best wishes to you and yours out there dealing with this very tough situation. Another big thing, I just hit 900 subs, well, a couple days ago. I think I'm already at like 908. It's getting up there. It took me back a little bit into thinking, hey, actually I started this channel a couple of years ago in April. It's April just sort of, everything going on, it kind of slipped by me there. And was surprised when I saw that 900 number. I wanted to say something. One, thank you, because that's hitting now, going for 1,000. I've got 100 to go to get to 1,000. And I'd done a little documentary on trying to reach my first 100 when I started the channel, and the trials and tribulations associated with that. And now here I am, 900, just dying to hit that 1,000 mark now. And again, I have much to be very appreciative for, very grateful for. And anyone watching the channel regularly, you know who you are, and thank you so much. And I appreciate it. And because, here I am, there's nothing super tangible like what the channel is known for, except for maybe this MVP, the most voraciously played show that I do once a month. And that's how I kind of review games consistently. But inconsistently, I do reviews and do unboxings and do tutorials and do playthroughs, and it's just sort of to provide, I believe, you the best content. I need to constantly be checking myself and making sure that I'm not just doing something because I think somebody wants to see it. It has to resonate with me. And so I have to also make sure that I'm not taking any review copies. I'm not taking anything free, that I'm purchasing everything so that I have that right, if you will, on my channel. And I want to maintain that. And I have to this point, that everything I talk about or review there's no freebies here. I'm purchasing everything. So all you will ever get from me is an exceptional amount of truth. and I like it keeping that way. It's very easy to maintain that integrity when you're buying everything yourself and only purchasing what you want when you want. And so if there's anything unique about the channel, that probably is as well. And thank you for hanging in there with all the inconsistencies and listening to these rants that I go on, because it means a lot that I'm not just sitting here talking to myself. So I appreciate it. And let's hit that 1,000 mark. Please let people know if they're interested in solo tabletop gaming. And I would, even go so far as to say heavy solo tabletop gaming is anybody who watches the channel, that's my preference. I do touch on some light games, but it's heavy solo tabletop gaming that most interests me. And let them know this is a good place to go and find and learn about games. And I would appreciate it. That's, if there's one compensation I would look for, I'd love it if you'd tell more people and we can hit that 1,000 mark sooner than later. So thank you again for that. Moving on, let's talk about what I played, shall we? So I got a total of, this game was all, this month was consumed by very few games. 4 games, actually. That's it. Usually I'm 8, 9, 10 different game guy a month. Not so this month. Locked into some goodies, as you shall find out. And 4 games, and across those, it was a total of 33 plays. 33 plays makes it sound like, oh, wow, well, you didn't really play that much. I don't really know one of these games how to count a play. So I can assure you that I played, as far as hours are concerned, at least as many hours in gaming as I ever spent a month. But sometimes I'll chalk in, 50, 60, 70 plays or whatever. But not so with this month, but you'll find out here as we go. Let's get into it and start off with the crew. I talked a lot about the crew last month. The Quest for Planet 9, it's a cooperative trick-taking game. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. Go check out last month's show if you want to learn more. Fantastic game. We played 2 more sessions of that over the month, and just enjoy the crap out of that game. If you're stuck quarantined inside a house with 4 or 5 people, it's a good game to get. It's kind of constantly floating on the hotness list on Board Game Geek, deservedly so. Moving on, Leaving Earth. I've been waiting for this game for a while, and it was struggling to get here, probably due to all the shipping and stuff like that, and finally arrived, and I finally dug into it, and I finally got to say it's great. And it is fantastic. And the game is very mathy. If you don't like math, if you don't like putting little formulas together, you're not going to like this game. Actually, let's take a second. Let me show you a little bit about it, kind of just the overriding understanding of the game that you need to have before you can get anywhere in it. And if it turns you off to, you're like, it doesn't seem like my thing, well, then you wouldn't like the game. Let's go check it out. The fundamental understanding of Leaving Earth is how rocketry works. Because you're going to be trying to move in spacecraft out into, Mars, to Venus, to the moon, to Mercury, etc. And you have to understand this basic principle of the difficulty to pull off your maneuver, the mass of what you're trying to move, and the thrust that's going to be needed to pull it off. And you'll basically take the difficulty times your mass, and that's going to give you the thrust that you need. So you'll maybe put together a little sheet like that as you try to figure out, okay, I want to get to the moon. I want to deliver this probe and land it on the moon. So you might take and work your way backwards. So you might go the difficulty to move from lunar orbit to the moon. First, you figure that one out. Then you go backwards. What am I moving from Earth orbit to lunar orbit? Then moving backwards, what am I moving from suborbital space to Earth orbit? Moving backwards, what am I moving Earth to suborbital space? It's kind of important you move your way backwards because it's going to take a lot of thrust. You're going to have most of your mass here on Earth and losing that mass as you finally reach the moon. So the amount and type of rockets you're going to need to get from here to here has to be calculated precisely, or you ain't going to make it. So to pencil it all out, to get from lunar orbit to moon, and I'm trying to move a probe from there to there, difficulty of 2. So I might go and from lunar orbit to moon, difficulty of 2, trying to move 1 mass. What rocket do I need? You go over to this handy dandy little grid here, and it tells you, trying to move difficulty, a mass of 1 will take a Juno rocket. So I wrote down Juno rocket. Now that Juno rocket has a mass, and that we're going to be moving from Earth's orbit to lunar orbit, the probe and the rocket. So now I have to add this plus this. That gives me a mass of 2. And from Earth orbit to lunar orbit is a difficulty of 3. So now, what will do that? A difficulty of 3, a mass of 2. We look over here. It's going to have to at least be an Atlas rocket because I can move up to 5. So I write down Atlas rocket. Now an Atlas rocket weighs 4. So now I've got an Atlas and a Juno and a probe that I'm trying to move from suborbital to Earth's orbit. That is a difficulty of 5, suborbital to Earth orbit. Now I'm trying to move the 2 that I had. Now this Atlas is a mass of 6. So what will move that? Well, at a difficulty of 5, a Soyuz rocket will move a mass of up to 7. So I write down Soyuz. Now, lastly, I'm trying to get just from Earth to suborbital, and I've got all this stuff to move. 6 plus now a mass of 9, 15. The difficulty to go from Earth to suborbital is 3. So I look, 3 to move a mass of 15. It's going to take at least 1 Soyuz. So to pull this maneuver off And that's if everything goes well, because you've got to test your rockets and make sure they don't blow up. It's going to take a probe to get that probe to the moon's surface, a Juno, an Atlas, and 2 Soyuz rockets. So yeah, the basics of rocketry and figuring out all that mass and difficulty and then you've got, I mean, that's it's a small part really of, I mean, no, it's huge. It's the biggest part. What am I saying? It's the biggest part of the game, but it's not all there is to it, because all of these rockets you're going to be using, you have to first purchase the technology for, and then you have to test. And purchasing, of course, takes money. Testing, of course, takes time. Those two things are very important resources in this game, because you only have 20 years to play the game, and each year is basically, you get to take as many turns with whatever money you have and whatever things you can put together, all the different spacecraft you can put together because you've bought the rockets. But first, like I said, you have to buy technologies to be able to buy the rockets. You have to buy technologies to be able to get to build certain spacecrafts. And then when you purchase the technology comes with some random cards, usually 3 cards, that could represent, as you try to use this technology, can represent critical failures, major failures, minor failures. Well, okay, not critical, but major, minor, and success. Those are the 3 different outcomes with these cards that you get when you purchase technology. And these things can blow your spacecraft up before it ever gets off the ground, or worse, you can be out and then you try to fire this missile to get you the last little weight or whatever, and there's a major failure and it blows everything up. It screws up the whole mission. And so this idea of 20 years, and then every year you only get $25, 25 million to purchase things. And technologies, just the technology to be able to purchase a rocket costs $10 million. And so you have to really the game has a huge push your luck element to it. And if you want to play it on the higher levels, you have to take into account tremendous amounts of factors and risks. And because to win the game, when you're playing solo, there's a number of missions that are going to come out. Those missions are going to have you dropping a probe off on Mars, or getting a sample from Venus. These are some very tough ones, or just doing a quick survey of the moon. And each of those different missions has a victory point value associated to it. And if you got 8 or 9 different missions out there with varying levels, you have to basically calculate all the total value there of victory points, and you have to make sure by the end of the 20 years, by the end of the game, you have more victory points, that you've completed enough missions that give you victory points more than what's left on the board. So if there's 100 points available on the board, you got to make sure you got at least 51 that you've collected, and only left 49 on the board to win the game. But also too, as you go out each game, you might find that Venus cannot be landed on. And so that mission that says you got to land on Venus cannot be done, so you get to flip it over. It won't count against you. So while you're playing the game, you're going to be disproving things as you're launching spacecraft out there. And the math gets pretty fast and furious too, because you might think, oh, well, now I know how to, what it all takes to get from Earth to Mars and back. Well, but mid-game, you're going to have done other missions that has left equipment out there just stranded or broken. And now you can, get an astronaut out there to fix it. And now you won't have to, because just the math of getting, or what it takes to get stuff off of Earth and into Earth's orbit is tremendous. And if you just have some rockets kind of floating out there, it can really change up the math and allows you to accomplish things that you maybe wouldn't have otherwise been able to deep into the game. Because also too, it starts, there's this idea, the years go by to get from one spot to the other. So you got to kind of wait for your spacecraft a certain number of turns before you can sort of activate it again. So much to consider in this game. It's fantastic. But again, it's very, if you're not into just trying to figure out these little formulas and stuff, it can really, if that's not your thing at all, you're not going to like the game at all. But if it is, and you enjoy these little puzzles that change game to game, because, like I said, it's like, well, now I know what it takes to get to the moon and back. So game over. I've already figured out the formula. Nope. There's so many variables. You got to keep your astronauts alive. You got to make sure you got supplies on there. Those supplies add a little bit to the math, which can throw off every calculation. Done it before. Been on my way to, I don't know if it was Mars or something, with an astronaut that I forgot to put enough supplies on there. I miscounted by 1 year. You know, space ain't forgiven. So that was Leaving Earth. Got 7 plays of that in, and on to the a game that you can't. I find it probably most difficult to describe this game because of I've never really experienced a game like it before. By far my most expensive purchase ever. Well, not by far, I guess, but it's for one game, yes, and that is Kingdom Death Monster. This game is a very generally fantasy role-playing adventure game. Of course, everything I love about a game, at least thematic-wise. What is it about? It's ultimately playing lantern years, and each year, whatever, there's a settlement phase, then there's a hunt, and there's a big showdown. That's the big fight against some monster, and then back to settlement, hunt, showdown. Or it might be better described as hunt, showdown, settlement. I don't know. This is where I kind of found it difficult to figure out, am I playing, is that one game? There's also the part, well, you know what? Let me just show you a little bit about the game, and we'll come back and talk more. When you start the game of Kingdom Death, you're going to start off with a lonely, lowly little character with a simple founding stone as a weapon and a loincloth as your one bit of clothing and armor. Later on, you're going to fill out your grid. You'll notice over here there's there's this outline, the 3x3 grid. And over here, I've filled this grid completely. And then you get into some really fun stuff, like matching up these colors to create affinities. For instance, my leather boots here, because I've matched up 2 green affinities to its card, I'm going to get this little bonus there. This one, I won't get the bonus because I've connected 2 green affinities, but this one's not connected. Fecal Salve does not have a connection up above there. So maybe I want to switch out some gear and get that extra bonus. Like my counterweighted axe here, because I've got the 1 red affinity connected to leather mask, I'm going to get that bonus. Also, I've completed a set, so I'm going to get a set bonus for this equipment. And here we have the settlement phase. You'll line up your survivors. You'll march down these numbers here all the way down to the end of the board, during which you're going to have settlement events randomly. You'll be able to develop your settlement as far as the innovations it has, what principles it lives by. Those are going to unlock and give you more abilities. Down here, you got your settlement locations. These are going to be built up. You're going to start with 1, and you'll eventually build up more. And then based on the materials you bring back to your settlement, you're going to be able to upgrade your weapons, your armor, or get items. And some items you can only build if you have access, if you've innovated heat, for instance, or ammonia. And then you'll march your way down here, and then you're going to prepare your survivors to go out for the next hunt. During the hunt phase, you're going to choose something that you can hunt. In this case, I chose the phoenix. You'll set up your hunt board. The hunt board is the settlement board just flipped over. And based on what you're hunting, in this case the phoenix, will be placed in a certain spot in the hunt. Everybody goes here and marches the way across. These hunt events will be resolved. Some are very unique to the phoenix, some are just generic. If you have the right equipment, you can say do some herb gathering. This hunt may be very short. You may have your foe move up and meet you. You may have it stay put, may move back. As the hunt drags on, it's usually not better for you, but all sorts of things can happen on a hunt, because you're essentially going to be rolling dice and then referring to a table, the hunt event table, which is numbered 1 to 100. And after the hunt comes the showdown. Depending on what creature you're fighting, it's going to have a showdown set up, which will be this board over here. There's where it all comes to play. What you're fighting, the survivors you're fighting with, different terrain that's going to come out. The phoenix, for instance, comes out with this nightmare tree. And that terrain, and all terrain, has its own little set of instructions, how it affects the showdown phase, which is basically the fight. And you get to put and utilize all of your gear here. You might notice there was only 3 survivors out there. If you're lucky enough to make it through the hunt, what's the saying? You're lucky enough? Yeah. You do not get attached to your survivors in this game. Or if you do, it's at your own peril. Moving on. The monster that you're fighting is going to have this little board here. It's going to have abilities that it comes out with depending on what level you're fighting. I'm just fighting a level 1 Phoenix here. It's going to have a little basic action card unique to what it does. See Phoenix up there. If I was fighting the lion, it would be lion. And very unique abilities based on being the Phoenix. The Phoenix has its own hit location deck. So when you are attacking it, first you see if you hit it, then you flip over a card to see what you have potentially wounded, and then you roll to wound it. Then if you wound it, you get to remove a card from the AI deck. Now this AI deck is, when it's the monster's turn, you flip over, see what the monster does. But as you wound it, you're going to be taking cards off the top here, put them in the wound stack, and of course, the more you wound it, the fewer actions it has available to it. And eventually, if you wound and get rid of all of these cards, you're going to defeat the monster. So the AI deck represents its actions it can take and its health. So there is going to be more to come on this as I continue to play it, and have already started this month. But ultimately, to perhaps address a burning question, is this worth it to me? Do you like it? I love it. This will easily make my top 10 of the year. But is it for everybody? No, absolutely not. I would say that this game is for the price point, what you pay for this game. A big part of it is that you do not get the miniatures put together. You have to build all your miniatures. That takes a tremendous amount of time. You got to pull it up to find the instructions to do it. Then you don't really need any materials for that. You just need a little thing of super glue or whatever. Yes. And you can use toe clippers or whatever to take the pieces off the little sprues. But that takes time. And you have to, if you enjoy that sort of thing, then now you're on your way to making this game worth it to you. Then there's the painting. If you don't have to paint, but if you are into painting, which I kind of found, I just started getting into it a little bit. I'm not good at it, but I found myself just with a little more time on my hands, of course, and just sitting down and watching a movie with the family. It's like, I just started painting stuff, looking into it a little bit, purchased some more paints, purchased some more brushes, and I've been kind of doing that, and that I've been enjoying a lot. My wife, as it turns out, loves putting these things together. Putting together that Phoenix is no joke. That took hours. And there's many pieces to that thing. And so, if you aren't going to enjoy that part of this game, then, because that's part of its value, is enjoying that hobby part. Before you get to play the game, you have to put your pieces together before you can play the game. And if you're just, if you like just things coming with miniatures and then you get to go and play like most games, this will be, I don't think you're going to like it. That's the full enjoyment comes from fully experiencing the game, and building these miniatures is part of it. Painting them is part of it. Now you're playing the game, and the gameplay is astonishingly immersive and visceral, and which brings me to another point where if you are the kind of person, and I can be, where you really get attached to a character and you're building them and you're like, oh, this is my character, and man, we're going to be super, we're going to have all the best gear and stuff, and you die. You can just die. Like that. Like what I just did there. Dead. And you could have been doing fine and perfectly healthy and all this stuff. My least favorite part of the game right now is the hunt. The hunt is too random for my taste right now. I'm so apprehensive about it. It's because I've just lost people. You just lose them, and for no great reason other than the game is terrifically unforgiving. And it's just, if there's a game that so puts to the front how fragile life is, this is the one. So you cannot get attached to your characters. If you do, you're gonna hate the game. And so, I mean, there's certain things you can do to kind of mitigate it, but like on these hunts, I mean, they can be really short if you don't want to really investigate anything. You kind of roll on this table and there's 100 different things. Well, and then also too, the hunt is associated with whatever you're hunting, like the phoenix or the lion or the antelope, and there's hunt events associated with that. But it can vary so quickly, and it's just on a roll of a die. You don't have any, within a showdown when you're battling the creature. There's lots of ways to mitigate stuff, and there's just, oh my gosh, the battles are. That's I want to say that's my favorite part of the game, but so is the settlement phase. It's so fun to just come back after you've defeated this thing and you've tore off chunks of, you've got bones and you got fur and you've got the fuzzy balls of a lion, or, you've got this stuff. You can take back the settlement. It's like, oh, what can I do with all this stuff? And you build stuff and you create your innovations. You can build your settlements in a certain way, and the population of your settlement increases, and story events happen according to the different years. And it's just, I think, part of the magic of the game is, if you are into building the miniatures, that you're invested in them. The game is, you feel like you made it to a certain extent, and you're just attached to it a little bit more. I think it's genius how they did that, and it's not just the only way they've done it too. They've made it so that you have to name your character in order to get a little extra bonus. So you can't just grab a character and I'm not going to bother naming it. It makes you. The game has mechanisms in it to draw you in and make it more personal, and then kill you on a bad roll. So it's like, oh, come in, bam, dead. You like it? No, but I find it odd. I'll be playing this showdown where I'm like, I'm going to get my ass kicked, and I'm almost like a little giddy about it. It's like, how is this thing going to kill me? It's interesting. It's just one of the most impressive gaming experiences I've had, and I've been meaning to play it more with my family. That was the whole purpose. But my wife's certainly got into it, building the models. But I've just kind of been playing it on my own because it's just so good. And again, I don't know that it's for everything. I think my family more likes the idea of having a character that you grow with, and can always kind of resurrect itself if it dies. It just doesn't happen with this game. So it's merciless, it's brutal, and if you can take it, if you can handle that sort of thing, which is difficult, the big pill to swallow sometimes, but if you can do it, you are in for a treat, and this game could be worth every single penny. That was Kingdom Death Monster. More to talk about that. And again, I'm on Lantern Year 8, so I'm calling it 8 games. But I have spent hours and hours and hours and hours playing that game or fiddling with that game. So it could very well be closer to 20 plays. But whatever. I'm going to call it 8. Moving on, the MVP of the month. And this was tough, but it's what I started with, and then Kingdom Death, I've still got a lot to experience there. But going back to Gloom and Shadows of Kilforth, I had, thanks to Dr. D of Astrology, who watches the channel and knew that I would like this game. And they were like, you will like this game. Get it. And I did. And it is. This will be. So I've had 2 games now that are guaranteed a spot in that top 10 of 2020. This, Gloom and Shadows of Kilforth. Now, I did get both the games at the same time, and I've done a full review on this, so I'm not going to talk a bunch about it. But this, again, is that fantasy adventure game. This kind of has this Mage Knight, which is still the best game of all time for me in solo. I did a video on that. Would Kingdom Death possibly unseat that? No, it can't. Because for me, personally, I still love the completion. Playing a game, Mage Knight, in 3 hours and going from 0 to just this magnificent hero and winning or losing the game is still an experience unmatched. Kingdom Death Monster is got the coolest stuff to it, but it doesn't have that sense of completion. You just gotta go when you want to go, 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 and still, while I'm into it right now, it's still not my preference in a game that's going to be my favorite of all time, like Mage Knight. Mage Knight has an end in sight, and the experience lasts a few hours. Well, now, why am I talking about all this? Because Gloom and Shadows of Kilforth does a similar thing in a smaller time frame and in a cute little package that's much easier to set up. You can, in a box, one box, you can put both games in one box, and very portable, and it wouldn't be difficult to relearn this game. Whereas Mage Knight, you pull that out, it's kind of like, got to go through real quickly. What are all the little fidgety weird rules? This, well, it has some, but it's not that heavy, and so it's really it would be a quick relearn. And it sets up, you can just put out all the cards, and it's so extremely variable, and how you can tweak the game is one of my favorite things about it, is that you can so suit the game to your tastes. It's just not a game that does it as well as Gloom and Shadows of Kilforth that I can recall. And anyway, my MVP of the month is these two games combined. Check out the review and learn more if you'd like to. So you'll notice there was no disappointment this month, unusual, but just all the games that I played I loved, and there was only 4 of them. So, and some of the games I'm looking forward to in the near future. Well, I just kind of on a whim, I just ordered Empires of the North. Imperial Settlers never hit with me. I actually sold it, and I just never quite knew why, because 51st State, which is sort of the same game but a different theme, I liked. And I just never did get into Imperial Settlers. So I'm going to give Empires of the North a try. And I'm also giving Under Fallen Skies, which is a print and play solo game on the heavier side, it looks like. But Shut Up and Sit Down just did an awesome series of solo videos. Well, and I don't know about they're awesome. I haven't even seen this other one, but I'm assuming it's because they did one on free solo games that this showed up on the hotness list, and I looked at it and I was like, so I printed it out. I've yet to cut it out, but I'm interested in trying that. Under Fallen Skies is a free print and play game on Board Game Geek. I want to check it out. I don't know if it's any good or not. I'm looking forward to Core Space. Picked that up. My friend in the local game store, I just had to grab some cards, some card sleeves, and they were like, hey, because they're shut down, and they said, we were thinking about you, and we got this game, and it's here, and I don't know if, and I was like, hell yeah, give me, of course they're going to get my business. They got to say something like that. And so I picked up Core Space completely on a whim. It's a pretty spendy game. So, but I've been looking more into that, and that looks cool. It looks like a cool miniature sci-fi, cool looking game. So more on that to come. And then Mistfall, Heart of the Mist. I still want to play that. One of these days I'm going to open that thing up. Anyway, so there's lots of stuff to get to if I can drag myself away from Kingdom Death Monster for long enough, or even Kilforth for that matter. I already got to play that in using some cool fan-made expansion, and just reminds me, it's just like I don't want to let these games go. Which is saying something, because I can usually move on pretty quickly from game to game. All that said, thank you so much for joining me. Come check out if you're interested more in what I'm doing on a daily basis. The podcast is up and running, and almost daily I kind of comment on what I'm doing and what I'm thinking. And thank you all for bringing the channel to this far, and all the subscribers. And until next time, on Board Game Rants, please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'm out.